Hello, and welcome to Journeys into Healthcare. I'm Joanna Krecu, and this channel is where I share stories, insights, and resources from my work with healthcare professionals, some of whom are also scholars who seek to publish their research in English. What you're about to hear is the talk I gave at the 2025 IATEFL Conference in Edinburgh, in Scotland, as part of the ESP Showcase, where ESP stands for English for Specific Purposes. The title of my talk was Teaching Scientific Writing as Process While the Process is Changing. I'm honored to have received this year's IATEFL ESP Scholarship Mark Krzanowski with my proposal to give this talk based on my experience teaching scientific writing, and I also want to thank IATEFL for granting explicit permission to share the recording here. A quick note, for privacy reasons, I'll be reading aloud the audience questions myself, based on the transcript, because I haven't been able to contact everyone who spoke and to get permission to share their voices. I've also added a brief reflection on one slide we didn't have time to fully explore during the live session. I think medical scientists and especially teachers of scientific writing will find it especially relevant and, hopefully, useful. I'm excited for the many conversations this talk has generated, and I hope the recording satisfies the expectations of those who could not attend, but who asked to learn more about it. Well, here it is, in all its fluid and imperfect glory. Let's begin.
So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second talk in the ESP Showcase today. It's my great pleasure to introduce Joanna Kretu. She is our Mark Krzanowski Scholarship winner of the ESP SIG, and today she's going to be talking about teaching scientific writing as process while the process is changing. So I'll hand over to you straight away.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here, very grateful to have won the scholarship, and very daunted by, teaching it as process while the process is changing. I must have changed this a million times more than the average number of changes done by other presenters. Enjoy the flowers and the apple flowers and the apples in my garden to invite the spirit of change. A little bit about me for this particular talk. I am a teacher. I taught medical and academic English at the Medical University in Romania for 18 years full-time. And then in the last few years I decided, I want to be free and work one-to-one with my medical scientists who were once my students, and now they have these complex special needs and crazy deadlines and complicated lives, etc. And I don't just do teaching, I'm also a certified medical translator. And the work I do with the medical scientists, PhD students, is very fluid. Goes from teaching to coaching to translating to editing and everything in between. So it's today I'm aware that you're teachers here in the room, but I want to bring the realities of all this spectrum for you to see how PhD researchers and established researchers write in English, non-natives, Romanian, and together figure out how to create the scaffolding that's needed so they don't necessarily struggle with the struggles that I'm about to share. I also created a resource because there's so much to say, there's so much to share. I did a reference list with books and articles and some very interesting research, including on how ChatGPT is being used by researchers or abused by researchers. I printed a few copies, but if you want all the resources, feel free to take a flyer. I don't want to sell anything or push anything. Just take it. The QR code here takes you to a Google Drive where you've got all this stuff and the stuff I did at the workshop yesterday where it was more about medical communication and artificial intelligence. Yeah. There's a couple of takeaways, though, from all this reading that I've been frantically doing. Detecting ChatGPT stuff from human written material is kind of a hit and miss, research says. And I'm not going to be original with the language here, but it is what I've I'm getting a sense that hallucinations and plausible hallucinations are really a feature and not a bug for now. The question is like, who is writing? Who is the author? It's a big question. And the editor-in-chief of Science Journals is reminding in an editorial that science is a human endeavor, struggling with questions. And it's about using the computer in our heads, while also, of course, using different tools. For non-native speakers of English who have to write, scholars, there are a range of solutions available. And I don't want to sound like a party cracker here, but all of them have their pros and cons. What I've found, at least in Romania, where I work, is that courses and workshops are not so many, and the timing is very often off for the individual researchers. And it's very hard for an individual researcher who's very busy, especially a doctor with on-call duties, etc., to then transfer what is done in that course to their particular setting. It's very difficult, it takes a lot of time and effort, and they're wondering, like, is it worth doing a course that is already developed without me in mind, yeah? My needs. Self-study, some people are very good at that, but it can also be slow and quite overwhelming these days with everything that's available. Too much choice. Translation services, I found, are sometimes a promise, take the money, but not necessarily provide a good translation. I've seen some really bad ones, and there's no learning. Editing and proofreading, it's becoming a big business to provide editing and proofreading services. I have seen articles edited through such services, and it's kind of a superficial thing going on. Tailored coaching and collaboration, that's great, ideal, but it's hard to find, it's rare, it's hard to scale. You can only work with a few people at any given time. It is the best solution that I've found, or that they can find, but it's kind of difficult to organize. And it can be a question of whether or not it is expensive, depending on what you're getting out of it, and how much, what the price would be otherwise. And now there's the new DIY with AI, which is very impressive, but also potentially flawed and ethical. And I've been spending lots of hours recently testing, and retesting, and I have some numbers for you today. The reality that I notice is that there's increasing pressure to publish or perish. It's heavy on the shoulders and on the minds of my clients. Just last week, I got a message on WhatsApp from a PhD researcher who's at a standstill, getting rejected from by international journals. And in the meantime, I managed to find the reason. It's that she wrote two brilliant, really substantial articles, more like 4, but they were 2, they could be 4, and never considered what journal to send them to. So now there's a mismatch between how they're written and what the journals are looking for in terms of structure and format and all of that. 3 times this year, I had a conversation where I heard, if this article doesn't come out in 2 weeks, I'm toast. Getting expelled. Supervisors that like, when it's ready, when is it ready, when is it done? Is it done? Oh, you were on medical leave, you had all this time, is it done? Yeah. And also, established researchers saying, I'm so proud of this article that came out, and really it's a brilliant article, you should read it. It's about Astor Piazzolla, tango, someone teaching musicology, but it took so long to publish that now the window of opportunity for my promotion is closed because the government froze all that. And another one I heard in February, I need to write 3 articles by Easter. From a client, fortunately, I started working with her in 2018. Her level of English was kind of A1+, had never published in an international journal, but now she could pretty much handle her own. It's just me giving her, this looks good. A couple of overkill phrases here and there, but yeah, we've come to a different place. Another set of realities, co-authoring does not make a writer. There's a co-authoring mania going on for points and promotion, and I can say that because I'm a freelancer now, so I can say it. I also said it before, but there was a bit quiet in the room, and now some people are actually putting on facial expression. We don't work at the same institution, it's fine. So co-authoring, not because of you are a co-author, but because there's institutional demands, there's system demands, there's sharing the financial costs of publication fees, there's maintaining good relations. Because everybody does it, there's a culture, which actually is not true. And because of the imposter syndrome that has grown to epic proportions inside, knowing that if you can, you really need to be a co-author, you can't. And supervision is a little bit like Russian roulette, with some supervisors doing a brilliant job supporting, and some that are not really doing anything at all. And that can result in some very costly delays, and even life replanned. Here I have some examples, I don't expect necessarily to read them now, but you have the slides and the extra resource available. This is a ad litem translation from one of my clients saying, a PhD researcher, I don't have anyone to consult with. I feel like I should have been born with the gift of writing articles. The supervisor keeps pressuring me, and so I chose to take a step back from the university. Or the big ego supervisors that are, you can't reach them until you can reach them, and then they go into micromanagement mode, mess you up completely, and then they disappear. And it's not because they're bad, they're not bad people. Their lives are just as complicated, if not more. Yeah. I don't know, she's not happy with the English. I can tell you the English was fine, is that those ideas were not supported by the evidence in the research. So you can't put big ideas in the conclusion to make it look good and impressive and in the title if they're not going to be in the methods and in the results. But for some, supervisors, it is more for image, for status, for the surface impression. So with or without AI, my clients write in many different ways. So something to consider as you at the different levels and from the positions, what ways are you allowing? Yeah, how are you encouraging people to work within what works for them, for their mind? I'm, for example, a very non-linear writer, kind of on the far end of that. But I know some people who are very structured, very linear. Plenty of quirks. People have quirks that you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't understand. I don't understand my quirks with writing. And yet they help in different ways. Some people are lone wolves. Other people are team players. People have in medicine, in the medical world, strong internal critics. They are very strong internal critics. But they're sometimes stifled by the circumstances that create pressure, that forces them to live with certain levels of compromise. But the compromise is felt and lived inside in their physiology, turns into sometimes illness, many times unhappiness, albeit temporary. And very interesting mixes of inferiority and superiority complexes, sometimes all meshed into one. Yeah, one thing I've noticed, and I hinted at it earlier, is about choosing the journal early. And Tanya Patterson yesterday at the workshop in the ESP SIG was talking about considering in a framework of teaching critical thinking skills to consider the circumstances of the writing early, before writing. And so considering where is this going? Some people do that really well, and that makes the writing smoother, and then the process afterwards better. And some don't know about it, and then they have to do a lot of extra work to to whip the text into the shape that it needs to be. So these are just examples of recent conversations I've had. the typical article structure with introduction, methods, results, and discussion, yeah, the very common approach to research articles, I find that it's not the way necessarily that people write, and not necessarily the way certain articles should be written. Sometimes it's just better to start with the results and see what story those results tell you, to avoid the pompous language and expectations, and just to try to diplomatically not go into those sorts of discussions where you have to convince the supervisor to give up on a title or give up on a certain aspect of the text. If you start from the results, stick with the data. What is the story that the data tells you? Okay, then there we expand towards the introduction and discussion, the title, the abstracts, the conclusions, outwards. And now a couple of examples of just to spice things up. What you see is in the work of my clients. I got an article titled "The Challenge for the Pathology of the 21st Century," case report. Yeah, much too vague. It was a little bit of a challenge to try to bring it down a bit, and we didn't manage to bring it all the way down. But hey, titles that cause expectations. Obviously, you read a title, you have an expectation of what's inside. Titles that create false expectations. Initially, I thought, oh my God, this title is so long. We need to do something for the reader to extract the juice. If you want to keep it long, okay, but they have the juicy bits at the beginning. And I thought that was done, but then we got deeper into the thing, and I realized, well, actually, your data and your methods do not allow you to say that it limits the incidence, because that's not what you studied. So we need to work on rewriting the title and do it a little bit more, a little more descriptive, a little less promising of an assertion like limits the incidence of, because that you would require, data to do that. And you can't go back on the methods because, I didn't think of doing it like that. Oh, okay, let's see what we can do with what we have. This is, you don't have to, please don't read it. Just notice the lack of numbers and the length. This was an abstract that was twice the length. Yeah, so conciseness. Twice the length, and for an abstract of a quantitative research, the lack of quantities is immediately noticeable. Mind you that the author is a plastic surgeon that treats people that get burned. If you leave with one idea from today, don't get burned. I am forever haunted by the pictures in that study, especially thermal. Yeah. Moving on into the text to the aims. This is an example of aims. Difficulty putting into words what the objective of the research is, what you're seeking to find. Yeah. Controlling the chronology. And the case report that had the big title with the 21st century pathology, it wasn't clear as we were working through the text, it wasn't clear what happened first and what came next. And it was because of the case was complicated. The patient was it was a game of ping pong, of moving the patient back and forth between different hospitals to figure out what was wrong, and because this wasn't it, and this wasn't it, and that wasn't it. And so there was a sequence of admissions and transfers and CT scans and things like that. But the language level of the authors prevented them from conveying that clearly. And when we worked on the tenses, the timeline, the order in which things were sitting in the text, and I expressed to them, from a reader's point of view, what confuses me and how I am understanding the chronology, what doesn't add up. They went back to the hospital records for themselves to get clarity for themselves, and then we had a conversation and met to just talk about the case and then deal with the text to make sure that it reflects the reality. Missing or misplaced. You can't talk in the results about the patient's perception of pain using a pain assessment scale if you haven't mentioned that in the methods. So it needs to be brought in the methods as one of the things that were done. Or things that are sitting in the wrong place, what was detected sitting in the methods where in fact it is a result. Obscure ideas and speculations. We love in Romania to write obscure ideas. Makes them long and then, windy. And not necessarily support every element of it. So saying that there were more men getting burned than women is probably due to working conditions and not really discussing that. That is shouldn't have sit in a scientific article unless you're gonna go there. Confusing, messy writing. Here it's same as our patient. Further down it's not same as our patient. Okay, this is homework, please. If anyone wants homework, because I only have a few minutes left. And we all love word choice. Word choices that don't make sense. Like the exclusion criteria included, and the stagnant evolution. Numbers that, like single patient, just call the patient. Overkill, like gold rush pursuit and perpetual beacon and zeal and impenetrable, and the end of the dark ages. It was about colonoscopies, by the way. Throwing things in the conclusion that are not in the text. So it's a big deal if you're going to bring it. Now in the conclusion you mentioned about cardiovascular. Okay, now that needs either to go or to stay. It should stay, but you should talk about it more. Enter AI. To share the load and blur the lines. A quote at the bottom is from one of the lecturers saying, I don't want to show it to my students. I don't think they would use it well. So gold for the conversational thinkers is to use speech to text apps. So you can actually sit down, have a conversation, and not have to redo it again. You've had the conversation, you've clarified the thing, you've got the recording, have the transcript, you do a summary of that, you polish it up. It's so much easier. Plausible, not good enough in scientific writing. I was perplexed by perplexity. Perplexity AI, yeah. I chose to, I've looked at several, but this is one, I chose it because one of my clients got a paid subscription offered by her Revolut online banking app. So if Revolut is offering, why not use that? I was looking into what I know. So Perplexity gave me a trial on OET candidates, never mind about that. But when I went to the source, it was 69 Chinese students. And they looked really, really plausible. And all the sources, progress has been made. So as of March 2025, sources are no longer fabrications, not as much as they used to be last year. But the sources I found were marginal, inconsequential, pseudoscientific, Asia, and nowhere else. So studies from Asian countries, and where I know that, on certain topics, things are happening in other places as well. Tools to review the literature and process a lot of content. That's great, processing a lot of content with these tools, wonderful. But when I actually did the experiment to do this reference list with one of these tools. It got a lot of things wrong. So actually, this is done by me. It's like manually. If something is wrong, blame me. But I would have put you in you would have been in trouble. I would have been in trouble had I generated that bibliography with those tools. ChatGPT or Grammarly, yeah. Did a little experiment with a diabetologist client. Studying the metabolic profile of certain patients, and asked ChatGPT to actually put together the paragraph to reflect the data. This is just an example. This is written by her, by my client. And we noticed that ChatGPT can produce text if you give it like the information that you want in, but it may take the direction, the idea, the discussion in completely irrelevant territory, and it's a lot of work to undo. It's like babysitting AI, is it worth it? So, bumpy road, ahead. This is for the discussion, what are the prerequisites that we need in this day and age to get to the place where you are a scientist and you want to make sure that we can get to a destination that we actually like. More in the PowerPoint is ideas that I've tried and I find that work. And over to you if you have any questions, especially about what to do. I'm all yours.
Now, I want to take a moment to expand on this point because at the talk I didn't want to exceed the time allocated to me, and it was also important to hear from the audience. These are teaching and coaching strategies I found work, especially with busy medical scientists. Some can also be adapted for solitary, self-directed learning, and some will be particularly relevant to teachers and scientific writing coaches. For one, develop genre awareness through motivation. It helps a great deal to be analyzing real samples from those journals the researcher actually wants to publish in, not just any vaguely similar papers or examples. Bringing that in early can make all the difference, not just with regard to form, but also to the methodological design and execution of the study that the person wants to publish. And also encourage conversational thinking and collaboration. As I mentioned earlier, AI tools can now record, transcribe, and summarize discussions or voice notes, and these can jumpstart the writing process. There is no need to be staring at the blank page late into the night. Another suggestion is to experiment with new workflows. Where are you getting stuck? Or where are your learners getting stuck? Once you identify the bottlenecks, you can find creative ways and sometimes simple tools to help get unstuck. Quite often, the bottlenecks are not about language or writing per se, but more about not paying attention to one's own biorhythm. For example, I'm an early bird. Another, blend learning and getting better at writing with drafting the actual manuscript. Many researchers who want to improve are also under pressure to publish, but that doesn't mean learning has to be separate. You can teach while the manuscript moves forward, identifying needs, personalizing input, and reinforcing skills along the way. And don't underestimate the value of old school practice. Sometimes a pencil in one's hand, pencil magic, is all they need to do like a quick, focused exercise on word choice or paragraph structure instead of cultivating a dependence on digital tools. And by the way, I encourage you to showcase both uses and misuses of tools. For teachers and researchers alike, it's important also to test these new tools that promise amazing results in productivity before adopting them, and keep testing because they change fast. Another recommendation is to encourage your scientist learners to not just be peer-reviewed, but to become peer reviewers. The peer review process can be an incredibly rich learning opportunity, as you will hear me illustrate a bit later in response to one of the questions from the audience. And finally, the most important one, I think, is to keep supporting, to mentor, to adapt. Be present, be generous, be kind. Remind the scholar to be kind to themselves. As Catherine Walter said in her plenary at the start of the conference, sometimes, good enough is good enough. One also needs to sleep, to hug a loved one, or to just, stare at the sky. Over to you if you have any questions, especially about what to do. I'm all yours.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for